Okay, welcome to another installment of Math Basics with Mr. Besh. Right now, we are talking about sample space, and our problem scenario that's being, brought to us is the fact that you're taking a coin and you're tossing it 3 times, and you want to know what is the probability that it lands on heads 2 of the 3 times. And they tell us in this example, we're going to create the sample space. This is the best way to do the problem. Now, what happens is what a sample space is a visual representation of all the things that we're going to use. So what we're going to do in this problem is that when you see T, it's going to stand for tails. And when you see H, it's going to stand for heads. Now, when I do this 3 times, let me show you my first in my sample space. So let's create it. Let's get to it right away. So one of the things that can happen is that I could flip 3 coins in a row and get heads, heads, and heads. It's a possibility, right? That's one of my chances. That's one of my outcomes, okay? What else could I do? Well, I could toss and I can get tails, tails, and tails. That's also something that I could have. But now we need to think about some of the other things, okay? So let's talk about the ones that would start here with the letter H, okay? So now some other things that are possibilities. Well, I could start with heads, and then I can get heads again, and then I can get tails. Okay, I can get heads and then go to tails, and then I can go heads, right? So far, so good. Now I need to think, just go through each one of these and say, okay, well, what else could be possibilities? Are there any other possibilities where I can start with the head like this? And the answer is, okay, no. Because remember, each one of these is a spot. This right here, this H represents the first one I flip. This H represents the second one I flip, and this T represents the third one that I flip. The place value matters for which letters are in the spots, okay? So now I'm going to continue. So then I'm going to come down below here, and I could have 2 T's. Notice I'm just flip-flopping the H's and the T's. This is another possibility. Come over here, do the same thing. So flip-flop my T's and my H's. There you go. All right? So now, right now, what I'm showing is I'm showing 6 more, 6 possible combinations. Now we need to think, are there more? Will there be more? And the answer is yes, because now what I can do is I can start with heads, and then I can go tails and then tails. Okay, well, if I flip-flop them down below it, then I can get tails, heads, heads as another one. Now I think and say, oh, is there any more? Is there anything I can think of? And the answer is no. How can I double check and make sure that that's a no? Because right now, if you take a look in my sample space, I have 8 things that can happen. How do I know there's only 8? Well, simple. When I take a coin and I toss it 3 times, when I toss a coin once, I have 2 outcomes. When I toss a coin a second time, I multiply those outcomes together. Now I have 4 outcomes. But since I'm tossing the coin 3 times, now what ends up happening is this tells me that I'm going to have 8 possible outcomes. Every time I toss a coin, there are 2 outcomes that can happen. And every time you increase an event, the outcomes that you have are the total chances multiplied by each other. So 2 times 2 times 2 comes out to be 8, and 8 checks. So to answer the question, to finalize what I have, it's asking me, what is the probability that it lands on heads 2 of the 3 times? Well, let's count. No, no, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. Because I'm looking for 2 heads out of the 3. And if I count up how many that I have that are circled, that's the top number of my fraction. And then the bottom number of my fraction is all the choices that I had. So the probability of selecting, or probability of getting 2 heads of the 3 is 3 chances out of 8. I hope you guys found this both helpful and informative.